Okay, well, why don't I go ahead and start since Buddy disappeared? He disappeared on my screen. So anyway, I've just prepared a quick 20-minute, 30-minute slideshow just so we're all on the same page, but I really want this to be interactive and be available to answer all your questions in the time we have together. I really only have 3 objectives in mind in what I'm going to present. And basically, I want to review what hormones are and discuss how they work in our bodies. Then I'd like to talk a little bit about some key hormones and how they specifically function. And then finally, I'd like to present some ways that we can naturally bring our hormones into balance. That I'd like to start by just introducing myself a little bit. I went to medical school just like any other, and board certified in family medicine. And there in medical school, they taught me how to treat, diagnose and treat disease. And most of the tools we use are procedures and drugs. And after about 5 years in practice, I decided I wasn't very happy just putting everybody on drugs. And I went back and got some extra training in integrative and holistic medicine. And from this perspective, I learned to treat the whole person and basically how to prevent disease, and expanded my toolbox to include more nutrition and lifestyle, and also embracing other healing modalities, which brings me to gatherings like this. And then over the past 10 years, I've also expanded in the direction of anti-aging and regenerative medicine. And here, there's a growing body of evidence that we can use to help our bodies be optimized on the cellular level. And the goal here is to live long, healthy, functional lives. And that's my training. Now, let me start by talking about hormones really quickly, so that we all understand that. Hormones are basically messengers in our, just like hummingbirds who take pollen messages from one plant. Oh, what's going on here? There we go. You guys see that? So hormones, they're released by specific cells, and they travel through our bloodstream. They deliver messages to other cells in our body, and specifically cells in our body, particular receptors for when the hormone floats to that particular cell. It attaches that receptor and creates a cascade of events inside that particular cell and really changes the behavior of that cell. And in that way, the hormones really are the messengers, and they're directing the show. And they realize that there are about 52 species of hummingbirds in Costa Rica, and it just so happens there are just over 50 known hormones in our body as well. And each one of them has specific receptors on specific cells, and when those receptors are activated, the cells respond in a very specific and predictable way. And you can see that hormones are essential for life in this way, as are hummingbirds. And you could probably imagine, if you've ever been engaged with a teenager or you have one in your house, that hormone levels can really affect behavior, both if they're too high and if they're too low. Now, I'd like to present a list of symptoms, and I want you to take a look at these and see how much these can impact our lives. And not only our lives, but the lives of our that deal with us. These are all uncomfortable changes. Let me see if I get that slide to pop up. There seems to be a delay here, so I apologize for that.
Might be something wrong with my microphone.
Here we go. Hey, you go to.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm not sure where we left off, but we were talking about how all those symptoms that I was showing you, we go to a regular doctor and they want to give you a drug for it. They're like, oh, this is a disease. I was taught in medical school that insomnia is a disease and that headaches are a disease and that low libido is a disease and all you need is a drug for it, right? But it so turns out that that they're all of these symptoms are caused by hormones. And when hormones are out of balance, when we change them or bring them back into balance, magically these symptoms improve and we don't have to throw in a drug that's something foreign and unnatural to our body. So that's what gets me so excited about this. Now, there's a lot of science behind it, and everything I'm telling you is evidence-based, not making it up, I promise. So I want to start by just going through some key hormones and basically making sure we all understand what they do. Estrogen is a significant hormone with regard to women, as we all know, and you can understand that there are over 400 known functions of estrogen, which has 3 different forms in our body. And so you can imagine low estrogen can negatively impact so many different systems. In fact, every organ system in some way is influenced by estrogen. And it so happens that a lot of the people that come to see me with symptoms on this list do have disruptions in their estrogen. And what we do know is that estrogen also protects our heart, protects our bones, it stabilizes mood and memory, it improves sleep patterns, and also it has an impact on our skin and the way we look. Tissues like breasts, your pelvic floor, muscles. As we age, all of these things get more lax, and estrogen is responsible for helping maintain structural firmness in all these tissues, which of course translates in the higher quality of life. You guys still with me? Good. All right. Yeah, I appreciate you giving me feedback every now and then, just so I'm not talking into oblivion. So estrogen, the way I look at it, is kind of the physiologic basis of the divine feminine energy. So if there is a duality, like we were talking about last night in life, on the macro level, there's a duality on the micro level as well. And in some ways, there is another hormone called progesterone that helps counteract, and it could be considered the physiological duality of the estrogen. Progesterone stabilizes and balances. Progesterone could be considered the inner peace. It's the hormone that has a wonderful calming, dramatically improves sleep and anxiety. And it also helps with sugar control and with mood. And it also helps bone density, and it also helps support the heart and thyroid. The other hormone, the next hormone I'd like to talk about is, before I talk about hormone, I want to talk about the balance. So we're talking about more of this duality. Hormones will change as we get older, and everybody knows we make less estrogen and less progesterone. But what you may not know is that we don't stop or reduce making them at the same rate. What happens is that estrogen slowly declines with age, progesterone slowly declines with age, but estrogen doesn't decline as fast as progesterone. So after the age of 20, we get a relative estrogen dominance because we're losing progesterone production a little bit faster than estrogen production. And so this estrogen dominance is sort of what you would experience physiologically right before your period. And it would be irritability, weight gain, fatigue, bloating. You could affect your libido, could affect your brain, your thoughts, foggy brain. And this pattern of symptoms is what starts to happen not just before your menstrual period, but throughout your whole cycle, as you get this shift in the balance between estrogen and progesterone. And so that's really important to understand, that you may not actually be in menopause, but you still may be suffering from an imbalance of your hormones. The next hormone I talk about is testosterone. It's responsible for energy and mood and libido, and also improves body composition and muscle mass to fat ratio. And in doing so, it reduces your risk of diabetes and heart disease, reduces blood pressure and cholesterol, and it tends to protect bone mass, and it's naturally resistant to breast cancer. There are just 3 more hormones I want to talk about, and then the next one is called DHEA. And the reason I wanted to talk about DHEA, which stands for dihydroepiandrosterone, is because this is something that's available over the counter. It's actually a prohormone your body uses to make other hormones, namely the sex hormones and the steroids. And it also declines over time. Inadequate levels of DHEA can affect mood and memory and your immune system, as well as your bones. And the cool thing is that it tends to also protect you from heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. The next hormone I want to talk about is thyroid hormone. Thyroid hormone, I think of the hummingbird, right? It's just like super hyperactive. Thyroid is your metabolism hormone. A thyroid is the one that that if you have a lot of it, you're jumping around and you're kind of hyper. And if you don't have enough of it, you're sort of laying around like a slug. It's critical for good health and well-being and quality of life in that way. And kind of the activator of high frequency energy. And I think of thyroid when I think of hummingbirds. And then the last hormone I like to discuss is cortisol. Cortisol is our stress hormone. And unlike the other ones, when this one's high, it's not favorable. Stress hormones help us get rid of danger in the short term, but we pay a price. When stress hormones are floating through our body, it causes inflammation, it lowers our immune response, it increases blood pressure, it accelerates aging, and it breaks down our tissues and forces us to store fat, raises our sugars, and it can also disrupt our sleep. So when it comes to hormones, and we have sort of a background now and we're on the same page of what they are. What can we do when they start to come out of balance? And of course, as an integrative and holistic doctor, I always look for ways naturally to do it first. So the first thing I want to mention is that we are literally what we eat, and our diet literally affects everything. And a well-balanced diet is the first thing that I recommend to my patients. It turns out that dietary protein is extremely important. Every hormone that our bodies make is actually constructed of amino acids, and amino acids are the building blocks of the proteins. And when we consume proteins, we get those building blocks that your body can rearrange and create our hormones. There are some essential amino acids that your body can't make that you have to get from your diet. So that's why an adequate amount of protein, which comes to be about 20 to 30 grams a day, is important for adequate hormone production. The other thing about your diet is carbs. Processed sugars, carbs, they promote inflammation in our body, and they promote production of the wrong kind of hormones, like cortisol, for example, and insulin, and it also accelerates aging. So one of the things I always recommend is limit those carbs, sugars, and processed carbohydrates in your diet. There's some evidence that we have benefits in our hormone production with healthy oil intake. These are medium chain triglycerides like coconut oil and palm oil. And they actually trigger the release of hormones and the production of building up hormones, and reduce the production of hormones that break us down, like cortisol and insulin. and it also supports memory. Another important oil is the omega-3 fatty acids. Very, very important because it reduces inflammation and it also reduces cortisol levels. So I always recommend eating as much fatty fish or take omega-3 supplements daily. Also, I just have to mention that eating too much or too little also can shift your weight and therefore shift your hormones. So not only do you need to focus on what you eat, but how much you eat is also critically important. Now, now there are some lifestyle issues that can also affect hormone production. And the number one thing is stress. Stress can wreak havoc on a lot of our systems, and hormones is certainly one of them. Research has shown that stress can affect your cortisol levels. In reducing stress, like with techniques such as yoga, massage, listening to relaxing music, like the healing things that we're discussing here, all those reduce the cortisol and the bad hormones and help promote the production of good hormones. The next thing is physical activity. I think it's really important to understand that physical activity is found to improve all hormones, including growth hormone and DHEA and testosterone. So regular physical activity is critically important. And no matter how nutritious your diet is and how well you exercise, sleep is also a very important component. If you don't have enough restorative sleep, none of that stuff will help, and your body will be out of balance in your hormones, particularly growth hormones and androgens. And then the last thing I wanted to say regarding bringing your bodies into balance naturally is that there are a whole host of herbals, natural things that can definitely affect our hormones. And although I'm not an expert on herbs, I do recommend doing things naturally as much as possible. There are herbs that support every one of our hormones specifically, and that's a whole separate talk we can discuss maybe next year about which herbs do specifically which things. And then lastly, when none of that stuff helps, as a medical doctor, I can actually prescribe hormones that come in a form of a cream, and these are bioidentical hormones that are derived from plants that are exactly identical to the hormones that are in our body. And you simply rub those on your skin, or you can rub those on the inner lining of your yoni, and you do that every day, and the hormones absorb directly in your bloodstream, and we monitor those levels periodically to make sure you're getting adequate doses, and we adjust those as necessary. And it doesn't matter whether your body's making them or you're getting them from the outside in the form of a cream. Your cells respond exactly the same way as they would, and in this way we can reverse a lot of those symptoms related to our hormone imbalance. So basically that's all I have. I want to summarize. We talked about hormones and how they're like hummingbirds and what they do in our body. We talked about some of the key hormones and their effect on our body, and then we talked about some natural ways that we can bring our hormones into balance. And I promise you I'll get these slides to Buddy so you can have those to look at, and I'm not sure if this is also recorded. You can also sync those up if you want. But I'd like to, if we have any time remaining, I'd like to answer any questions you have.
Yeah, Patrick, we have just a little over 10 minutes, so we have time for questions for sure.
Oh, that's
Patrick,
awesome.
I sent you a question through your mail, but I'll just ask it here. I'm wondering about the role of testosterone. I know there's a big like testosterone craze. Everyone talks about how you need to increase your testosterone levels, and that's what the key hormone is for being a man. So could you kind of shed some light on that?
Sure. So testosterone is in men and in women. It's the divine masculine energy that we both have, and it's dose related. So the more testosterone in your bloodstream, the more your cells respond to it, and they respond in the following ways. You have more confidence, you're more aggressive, you build more muscle mass, you have a higher libido, and if it's too high, obviously that's a problem. And if it's too low, obviously that's a problem too. So when it comes to testosterone replacement, what we're talking about is, are you getting what you want out of your life with regard to those symptoms, right? So for some people, they identify more on the feminine perspective, and they might have too much. So we may give them some testosterone blockers. And for some people, their body's not making enough, and they identify more with masculine. And for those people, they feel more comfortable with a little more testosterone. The laboratory range that's considered normal for testosterone is 300 to 1200. So you can imagine that's a huge range. What's optimal for me may be very different than what's optimal for you. So what we look at is your symptoms, and we say, hey, how are you feeling with regard to these symptoms? Do you have enough energy? How's your memory? How's your libido? And if we have a discrepancy from where you want to be and where you are, and we can correlate that with blood levels, then you are a candidate for testosterone replacement therapy. And we always keep that within a physiological range, and we try to optimize it so people are feeling the way that they feel comfortable. And we monitor levels, and we monitor safety labs a couple times a year. And so that's the way it's done. Now, regarding the media and the hype, well, it turns out that a couple of pharmaceutical companies have manufactured testosterone replacement in the form of a gel. And so they have bombarded us market-wise so that people start thinking about it and asking their doctors for it. But the approach is exactly the same. People come to me and they have high levels, regardless of their symptoms. I'm not going to make them super physiologic by giving them replacement. It's all about correlating symptoms and levels and bringing them to where they feel comfortable. Does that answer your question?
Yes. What are the disadvantages of having too much testosterone, as you were talking about?
So outside of the emotional effects of testosterone, the overly aggressive, overly confident, it could affect your life in those ways. We know physiologically it increases your cholesterol and it increases your chances of heart attacks. So high cholesterol, high testosterone is associated with higher risk of coronary artery disease and heart attacks and strokes.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, and one more thing.
So much.
It also, testosterone breaks down into a product called dihydrotestosterone, which is something, if you're on testosterone replacement, you should always be monitoring. Dihydrotestosterone is the bad guy. It's the guy that enlarges prostate. It's the guy that increases the risk of cancer.
Wow, thank you.
That's
That's such an eye-opening set of information. I really appreciate that. That changes my whole perspective on my journey towards health.
Awesome. I'm so happy I was able to help that. Any other questions?
So, hi. Thank you so much for everything that you're providing us. I had messaged you, but you can make that discernment whether or not you would like to share with the video here, just because it's very specific to a chronic symptom that I'm experiencing, but it may not be for others.
So as long as it's okay with you, I'm happy to address a specific concern because others may have a similar concern and they may get something out of it.
Right.
But if you want confidentiality, I am offering 15-minute consultations for free. I'm not going to charge anything for my time. You just have to hit my little octagon and schedule it, and I'll meet you in the Healingtopia portal, and we can discuss it one-on-one. That's an option as well.
I am okay with both of those. So whatever you would like, I want to respect your time as well.
We've still got at least 8 minutes, Patrick, so if you want to address it here, that'd be great, so we could all maybe absorb something from it.
Okay, so I'm just afraid of touching anything on this screen. Do you feel comfortable repeating your question so I don't have to open up another tab? I don't want to lose you guys again.
Yeah, that's no problem. So any insight on unexplained eye floaters in healthy eyes?
Oh, so I'm not an ophthalmologist, so I really I can't comment on that. Eye floaters can be anywhere from. So my experience as a primary doctor for 20 years is if there's something going on with vision, I send them to the ophthalmologist. I can tell you that 9 times out of 10, they send them back and they say they're fine, not a problem. Now, I personally believe that there's something going on there and it should be addressed, but you should definitely be evaluated by an ophthalmologist if you have eye floaters. And I don't personally know of any hormonal influence on floaters. However, when people come to me with unusual symptoms that aren't explained, like I've been to the doctor, the eye doctor tells me my vision's fine, but I got floaters, or I've got this crazy rash that my dermatologist can't figure out, or I've got this constellation of symptoms, I always go back to the basics. And the basics are, we've got to bring your body back into balance. We look at hormones, we look at micronutrients, we look at the gut, we look at genetics if we have to. We bring things back into balance. And I can tell you almost every single time things improve, right? Even if it's not a disease, so to speak, right? Because we're led to believe in medical school that, we can label everything as a disease, but to be quite honest, there's a lot of stuff we don't know. And Western medicine has a reductionistic approach. If we can find one little problem to fix, like cut it out or burn it or attack it with a drug or poison it, then we're in good shape. But if we can't figure that out, we just label it and say, it's normal aging, or it's just normal for you, or you don't have a problem. And that world, that gray zone is where I operate. And I basically work on restoring the body's balance. And I can tell you, it works. So I would suggest for you, go to an ophthalmologist. If they can't figure out what's going on and solve the problem, go to an integrative or functional doctor.
I am absolutely doing both of those. I did the 6 different ophthalmologists, and now I'm working with an integrative health professional. So I guess I'm on the right track.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Well,
okay, so we have enough. We have any more time, buddy?
Yeah, we got about 4 or 5 minutes. You want to add a few things, sprinkle some more knowledge on us?
Okay, yeah, let me sprinkle some more knowledge on you. We talked about testosterone replacement a little bit, and I really didn't talk about testosterone replacement. We talked about bioidentical hormone replacement. We can put a number of different hormones inside a cream, and you can rub it on. We can also put testosterone in a cream, but most people are like, are there other options? And so I want to give you other options. We can implant the hormones in a pellet form, and we can put the pellet right under your skin. That slowly releases over the course of several months. That makes it a little bit more convenient, but it's a little less physiologic, right? Because it's one big spike and trough. And in the case of testosterone replacement, we can use an injection of an oil emulsion of testosterone which releases over the course of a week or two. So you, in addition to the creams, there's pellets, and there's also injections, which can be a week or two apart. And those are other routes of administration. Let's see, if we have more time, let me talk about some of the side effects. We talked about side effects of testosterone. Let's talk about side effects of estrogen. It turns out that there's estrogen receptors in the breast and estrogen receptors all over the body, of course. And breast cancer is either estrogen receptor positive or estrogen receptor negative. And if the breast cancer is estrogen receptor positive, it will grow faster with more estrogen in your body. So it doesn't matter whether you're getting it from the outside through a cream or a pellet, or you're getting it from the inside. Your body's just making more of it for the reason that it was programmed to do that. All the estrogen in your body could make that breast cancer grow faster. So if you're on any kind of estrogen replacement therapy, you should be getting regular mammograms and regular breast exams to make sure you don't. There's no evidence that bioidentical hormones cause breast cancer. However, we were giving women synthetic estrogen for many, many years, and you guys may have heard Premarin and Provera or Prempro were synthetic hormones we give people for many, many years, and we stopped in the early 2000s because a study came out showing that they actually caused breast cancer, heart attacks, and strokes. And it turns out that the reason they caused those is because they were synthetic hormones that acted in an unusual way in our body, and they definitely should not be used. So if any of your doctors offer you Premarin and Provera, which are still on the market for some crazy reason, there's plenty of evidence to show you should not be on those. The other thing to understand about estrogen is that you should not take it orally, because if you take estrogen orally, then it goes through your gut and then it goes through your liver before it gets to your body. And through the liver, it changes into a form of estrogen that's actually dangerous. There's a specific form of estrogen called estrone, and a breakdown product of that estrone is the one that's the culprit for increasing your risk of heart disease and cancer. So don't ever take estrogen orally. That doesn't hold true for progesterone, by the way. Progesterone can be taken orally. In fact, sometimes I give it preferentially orally at bedtime because it's like magic. It helps people sleep and get amazing night's sleep. I even give it to men at much smaller doses, and it's a natural way to get restful sleep. Let's see, what else would be important for you guys to know? Have I stimulated any other questions?
Hi, one more question. So obviously this ties in, this topic can tie in with birth control. I've had a history of probably a decade of just on and off birth control. And I do resonate with everything you're saying because I'm feeling called to just really bring everything back into balance.